Hey, Don Copeland here with the Compress IUV. Today we're working on the 600. This could apply to our 1200 or our new 350. We deal with a lot of items in this marketplace that aren't standard. That's the cool thing about UV, right? You know, it's not like a piece of paper we lay in here or something like that. We have a lot of items. And so today we're going to do a little bit of, maybe a little bit of marketing, but also a little bit of education for you about how to deal with difficult items. And one of these is actually, as we always do here at ColDesi, it seems like when we have something that we're doing for somebody who works here ourselves or something like that, it's a real world application. So we're going to try to help you guys while we're helping ourselves. We were going to a wedding next week. My wife and I, it's a daughter's friend from college. They played soccer together. And one thing we've started doing for these young couples is we give them an ampersand for their wedding and remind them that they've now become an and. Their names are attached by an and. And my wife has always bought these things and painted them up. And she is very talented with painting. She's not real great with putting letters on. And so we started talking about it. I said, you know, let's try this on the UV printer. So she went ahead, cleaned this all up, painted this a couple passes, and then we had to figure out how am I going to get onto here what I have on my screen, which is what we want to represent on here, the two's names with the and in the middle. So I tried a couple of things and failed miserably. Number one, do not use your cell phone. Your cell phone does not take a perfect picture of this. I actually took a picture of this, did a quick vectorization of it, printed it out on the bed, and it was like somebody had stretched it. It just didn't fit. So what I did then is I actually took this, put this on. We have one of those fancy copier printer type of scanner machines in our sales room. And I took this and I actually scanned it in. All right? And as you'll see here in a second, as I want to show you on the computer, you have to think sometimes, which is I was looking at this. Unfortunately, the scanner was looking at this. And so when you look here on the screen, I've actually brought it up in Photoshop, the scanned file that comes in. I have a perfect representation of my ampersand. It's just backwards. Easy enough to do. We mirrored that over. We actually did a trace of this and created an outline. And then we brought it in and scaled it to exactly the right size of the ampersand into our design software. And you'll see right here in the design software, you will see we have an outline here. Got a flat top because I laid it a little in the wrong spot on the scanner bed. That's fine. We don't need to top. The rest of this is fine. And then we've laid in the text that we're going to print out on top of that. Now these are in separate layers. All right, so when I go in here and I select, I've created two layers. I actually have a third layer here, which is actually a bitmap representation, so we can see it on color as well, but we're not going to show that. So I have a layer, which is the group of text, and then I have a layer, which is this path right here, which is the outline of the ampersand. What we've done is we've oriented this on our screen blank to a specific spot so that when I print these, and I'm going to do this in two passes, I'm going to do a print of this representation of this outline. All right, this is not a square, this is not a circle, it's not an oval, not a rectangle. This is an ampersand. It's a strange shape, and it's a specific ampersand, not just some font from somewhere. This is the exact representation of the outline of this piece that was cut out by some type of routing device. And so we've taken that, and what we're going to do at this point is we're going to just print. As you'll see here, I have layer 3 turned on, both to see and both to print, and I've turned off. I can see the lettering layer, but it's not going to be printable. And then the third layer I actually have turned completely off, so you can't see that at all. So when I go to print, I'm going to print this over, and it's only going to grab the layer that's active, which is the outline layer. I'm just going to do a single layer representation of it, and I'm printing this relative to the sign blank. All right, so this means this point right here is my 0, 0 on my printer. And when I come back and print the lettering, it's going to be relative to the exact same point. So it's going to orient to this, so this is going to allow us to position it. So now I come over here to our RIP, and we're going to have in here our, got two representations in there. Remove the one I'd sent over earlier. This is actually my outline. And when I print this, I'm just going to do a fast representation of it. It doesn't really matter. I'm literally only looking for positioning. I'm going to print this straight onto the bed. All right. Some of you may have seen some of our earlier videos where we do like cell phone cases and stuff like that. Those are rectangles. This is a little bit more challenging. I just had to measure the outer dimensions of those and we nailed it. So right now we're printing this outline over here straight onto the bed of the printer. These are the silicone mats that come with the machines. So they clean up nicely. One thing that you'll want to do is probably every week or so, if you're doing a lot of this type of printing, just pull these off, scrub them down with a little bit of soapy water, and they go right back to their original stickiness. And on top of that, they're 2 layers. You can turn them over, and you can use the other side as well. Coming out of here. You'll be amazed when you look at this and see how well this represents, other than that little flat top thing. But other than that, it's almost an exact representation of this outline of this ampersand we have right now. All right, as you can see here on the bed, you can see this whole ampersand. In fact, if I lay them beside each other, you can tell they're really, really close. All right, so it fully ejects here. Now what I want to do is I want to bring this in here, and as best I can, I'm going to line this thing up. And I think if you were to zoom in here, you'll see there's very little variation of lines sticking out. So I think we've nailed it. I don't know if you'll see that in the video. We were so close to the alignment on this that when my cameraman came over here to take a picture of it to put it in as a still, we actually physically had to pick the ampersand up so you could see the line. That's how close the lines were, that we were so accurate. And you may not even be able to see the lines in those pictures because they're so close against it. So we've now positioned this, once again, exactly relative to the same point here as we have it in the computer itself. I'm going to lower the bed down because an ampersand is a little bit thicker than a layer of ink. We're going to bring this in so that we can set the print height. And by the way, especially when your wife is the one that does this work, you don't want to just shoot from the hip. So we're pretty sure this is going to work. We actually took a piece of removable vinyl, and when we went through a test fly on this, laid it over top of the item and printed to this. The clear removable vinyl is so valuable when you're doing this type of stuff. Number one, it sticks well, but it doesn't leave a residue. This is the kind of stuff they make like fat heads and things out of to stick on your wall. Number two, it's clear. So when I stick this on top of an item, I can see exactly what it's going to look like. We use this to do positioning. We use it to say, hey, do I like that color on this color? Do I like that font? Do I like the way it's curved? Whatever. Am I positioned wrong? We use this type of stuff as well. So I'm not risking too much of my life and limb. We have another week until the wedding. So if this doesn't work, we can always buy another one and paint it. But anyway, we've got this set up. We've set our print head height. See the red light comes on. I can slide under here and just make sure. Beautiful. Load it up. And after many gyrations and discussions, texts back and forth with my daughter with pictures of it, we finally decided that the best color to print on here was white after we went through about 3 colors of purple. So we're going to print white onto here. What I've done is you come back here into the screen, as you'll see, remember we had the 2 different layers we're working with right now, which are layer 1 and layer 3. Layer 1 is actually the text. And since we're going to print this in white, I'm just going to use a cue we have that's called white only. So what I've done is I've taken all of the text, turned it all to black. I'm going to drop it into the white cue. It's going to print it as solid white. So I've done that, but what I'm going to change now is I have to once again go in here. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the view of the outline, turn off the print of the outline, and then turn on the print of this layer, which is all of that text, which is pretty amazing when you look at that thinking, how in the world would I ever align that with an ampersand? The way we did it, exactly the way you would do it. So I'm going to print it. This time when I print, instead of printing to a single color layer, I'm going to print to the white only layer. This is our white only layer. All it does is print white ink. And just to show you here what I've done is I told it to print to the edge of the sign blank, which means print this relative to the 00 point that's on our screen. It's what we did on the first one. We do that on the second one. They're going to orient to each other. It's going to come over here. It's going to shoot over to my rip. I'm going to go to my white only cue. And you see right here, it usually gives you a black background so that you can see the representation. You see the text is there in white. And what we're going to do is, since this is a wedding gift, I think I'm going to make sure that it's a little bit higher resolution than I would in our standard mode. This is a 1440. Actually, you know, that's probably pretty good. I will probably do a unidirectional print though, just to give us a little bit better print. I'm going to rip this. This is the great part. This is probably going to be less than a penny worth of ink. 0.87 cents worth of ink. All right, there's not a penny worth of ink on this. All right, we probably used almost as much ink printing the outline as we did printing this. So this whole job, my wife actually offered to give us a dime for the ink, all right, because she figured my time in there and she knows what my time is worth. All right, I've got it lined up, I've got it ripped, and we're going to print it. All right, there we go. Check that off the list. Wedding gift ready. Congratulations, Sydney and Andrew. And we promise not to release this video on YouTube until after next Friday at your wedding. So again, let's just go over what we've done here. We took this difficult to print item, this ampersand cut out of wood, it's probably an inch thick. All right, after it was painted and everything, we actually took it, put it on a scanner. In our case, it was a fancy scanner, printer, copier. Saved that file, brought it in. We took it into Photoshop. We actually did a trace of it quickly there, dropped that traced file into our design software, our compressed design software, created a layer, all right? What we did then is we printed it straight onto the bed relative to the bed, which is our outline, which you see right here, all right? We made sure that we were accurate based on our measurements for the height and the width of this, which we were real close to being right on point. Then we laid this item in here. At the same time, we'd set up our artwork, and we had brought in the scan picture as well, so we could see laying it on there exactly what it was going to look like. Laid in our text, all right? And then we took that and had it on a separate layer. Once we had printed this layer down, selected the text layer, printed the text layer only, once again, relative to the sign blank. So that meant from the 00 was the same on them, so it was going to print within this ampersand outline. And we just designed our artwork in black because we have a Q in the RIP software that's white only. So if you have something you need to print in white, you don't need to worry about converting it to white in your software or anything. Just bring it in, it just prints a solid white wherever anything is at. And this is the net result. You know, with this really nice finished piece of work. There was 0.87 cents worth of ink. There was not even a full penny worth of ink on this right here, and it printed in, and I printed in a pretty slow mode just to give us a really good quality. It is a wedding gift, right? It probably printed in 2.5 minutes at the most, and under a penny. So you can knock out 25 of these in an hour, and you wouldn't even spend a quarter on ink. So there it is, difficult to deal with item, not a rectangle, not a square, not a circle, anything like that, an oddball shape. How do you creatively be able to target something like that? This is the way to do it. Outline, print it on the bed, and when you're done, you take a piece of tape, take this right up, and you're up and going again. That's the beauty of these silicone mats that come on the compressed IUV printers. I'm Don Copeland, and I'm done printing difficult things for today.